Hello and welcome to another episode of Between the Covers. Welcome to the broadcast. As you're coming into the broadcast, please do tap the screen, show us some love, say hello, let us know where you're watching from. I have got a very exciting guest with us today. So without any further ado, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Daniela Blechner. I'm an author, book journey mentor, founder of a company called Conscious Dreams Publishing. We work with authors from all over the world to help them get their powerful messages and stories out there in the form of professional books. You can't quite see it now because I've got my banner here, but in the bookshelf behind me here are just some of the 130 plus books that we have published. Which way does this go? That we've published over the last 5 to 6 years. I'm absolutely passionate about providing a platform for unseen, unheard authors so that they can have their voices heard and stories shared so they can educate, inspire and empower for generations to come. So this show really is about sharing what that journey is like behind the scenes. It's so easy to, read a book, look at a book, or order a book, enjoy a book, but have no idea of actually what it took to create that book from start to finish, from concept to actually post-production, marketing, promotion, all of that. So this is what this show is about. It's also a platform where I interview authors. Sometimes there are authors, sometimes there are other authors, whether they self-published, traditionally published, people with really powerful messages and stories. So today I am interviewing an author who's been with us now for 3 years. I think she published her first book in 2018 with us. Her name is Gurmeet Dhjanjal. She has published 3 books with us now. The first one is Our Dance Through Life, Volume 1. The second one's 101 Inspirational Quotes. And her book that came out recently, last October, was Our Dance Through Life, Volume 2, a beautiful poetry book that features not only her poems, but poems from NuSound Radio, as well as her own granddaughter, who's 7 years old, amazing girl, Aria. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce the awesome and amazing Gurmeet. Please do say hello. Hello.
Hello, Danni.
How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you.
Excellent, glad to hear. So how do you feel? You're an author now of 3 books. In 2017 you didn't have any books. You were thinking about it, you weren't sure, but now you're like a serial book author, if that's even a term. How does it feel to be an author of 3 books?
Well, it is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
but more amazing than me actually being the author of the book is how many people I have been able to inspire through my own journey of becoming an author, really.
Amazing. So tell us about, obviously the last time I interviewed you was maybe 2 years ago on your last book, Our Dance Through Life, and you followed that up with the second one, Our Dance Through Life, which I can see just behind there, if you could show us.
Yes.
That would be amazing. See it on your shelf. Beautiful.
There it is.
Talk us through this book. What's it about, and what inspired you to do a part 2?
Well, you know how sometimes, you don't plan anything, but things are meant to be, and they just happen. Yeah. So this book actually wasn't planned as such by me, but what happened was that my first book, Our Dance Through Life, I happened to give to a radio presenter at International Women's Day. And I said to her, if you want me to come and talk to you about my book that I just published, give me a call and I'll be happy to talk through my experience of publishing it. And anyway, she sort of read the poems and said, about 6 months later, Gurmeet, I've been reading your poems. I absolutely love them. Would you like to come and share your poems on the radio with me? And I said, well, yes, I'd love to. So I initially started just phoning in and sharing my poems. And the response that we were getting from the listeners was amazing. And so then, lockdown happened and we were at home and I was kind of feeling a little bit helpless and wanting to help other people. But I was thinking, what can I do to help others? My husband's quite strict, you can't go out, you can't do this, and etc. So then I sort of like teamed up with the presenter of the NuSound Radio, Moni, and I said to her, I said, I really want to help people who are locked in and day in, day out. I said, I want to do something to actually inspire them to maybe share their journey of a lockdown through poetry. And she said, well, that sounds a really good idea. So I started sponsoring a show once a week. So I would go on the show and share some of my own poems and inspire the listeners to send in their poetry about the lockdown experiences that they were going through. And so anyway, at that point, we hadn't actually, thought anything about book, because I didn't write any more poems. I had about 4 or 5 poems, which I had written, and they were just sitting there. So in fact, going on the radio inspired me to write. And because of lockdown, we were homeschooling my granddaughter, and one day she was at home, and one of her English, lesson was to write a poem. And I tried to help her write a poem, and she kind of looked at me like, "What do you know about poetry?" Like
you're a poet. Did you not know you're an author?
Well, no. And then she looked at my mantelpiece, saw my book, and she said, "Oh, maybe you do know something about poems because you have just published a book." And I said, "Well, if you think so." And then she saw at the bottom that her auntie's name was also there, and she kind of smiled like, "I want my name on the book as well." So I said, "Well, you better start writing poems as well then, isn't it?" And then so, I sort of basically, one day it was raining, I took her to the door and I said, "What can you hear? What can you, use your 5 senses to describe the rain?" And well, that was the beginning of her writing poetry, basically. We shared that poem with the family and everybody said, "Wow, she's written that poem. It's amazing." And that gave her the confidence to write. So alongside myself, the NuSound Radio listeners, and Aria, we were all 3 of us sort of like, writing about our lockdown experiences. And at that time I thought, well, you know what, wouldn't it be nice that, basically the people who were sending in their poems, they were going to get a free signed copy of my book. And so the poems were flooding in, and we were actually reaching people in India, in America, Australia, New Zealand. So people were actually, sort of like listening, appreciating, and sending their poems in from all over the world. And then I thought, well, there's a lot of charities doing good work outside, and I want to make a contribution towards those charities as well. So then I said to Moni, I said, wouldn't it be nice if we could collate all the poems and publish another book, and the money from the proceeds of the books will go to the charities? And she said, "That's a really good idea." So, and then I approached you, and you said, "Well, yes, we'll publish your book."
But amazing. We had the pleasure of meeting Aria on, we did our event, Pass the Mic event, the poetry event, and her poems are absolutely fantastic. The spring poem, is my favorite one. She uses alliteration, description. And I've got Portia here who said, "Lovely that she does not have to look too far to be inspired," which is great. I mean, how many people's grandmothers are poets, published authors, they're published poets. So, I mean, I think that's amazing as well that, during lockdown, you managed to keep yourself busy. You became a sponsor of NuSound Radio, and then you inspired other people to, get involved in this book and write poetry. So the people that contributed their poems to your book, Our Dance Through Life, Volume 2, were they poets? Was it something that they were familiar with, or were they just inspired to create?
Well, some of them sort of had written some poetry, but kept it to themselves, and some of them were sort of like newbies to poetry, and but they had suffered COVID themselves, and they had people in their family who had suffered. So the experiences that we're going through, they were very raw and real in their life. and the poems, when I was reading them, I was really kind of, touched by them, really. And I just felt that, this lockdown that we're going through now is really, really hard. We want to be able to look back, in a few years' time and think, what people had actually gone through and how we got through it together, through the sheer love of poetry. So, yeah, I mean, like now, to be quite honest, some of the poems that I've written, when I read them now, I can't believe that actually I wrote them, because, I mean, like the poems that, were inspired by my morning walks, and the seasonal changes, like the puddles. And, there's a poem in there which I wrote about hands and water. And there's a poem in there which I just sort of, Mother Earth. And at the same time, I was thinking about my own life and cultural traditions. So a lot of the peoples actually who have been reading the poems have been able to associate their own sort of like experiences with the poems that I've written. And it's really nice that people are actually connecting in different ways to different poems in the books.
And do you think that, you say you spoke about nature a lot, and you started to think about your life, and you were thinking about, culture, and there's lots of poems about marriage and tradition and relationships, motherhood. Did it make you really reflect on your life, but also take in, be connected with nature a lot more? This, idea, or the fact that we were on, lockdown?
I think a lockdown did give people a chance to reflect about life in general, and the life that they had led, and the life they were living, and the life I think that they aspired to live. Mm-hmm. And that certainly was the case with me. I had retired for years, and I found retirement quite difficult because I had worked all my life. And I'm sort of like always pushing my own boundaries and breaking down barriers. And that's the way I have lived my life. And so since I retired, really, this was something else that I really kind of, actually, I never thought about publishing a book, but I was just writing poems. And then, but I had written so many poems, I didn't want to lose them, because obviously each poem meant a lot to me while I was writing them. And there was a friend, who said, like, when are you going to publish them? And I thought, well, that's the best way to actually preserve my poetry and my daughter's poetry, who started writing poems when she was 9, again, inspired by what she was seeing her mum do, and was writing poems from her own perspective of a 9-year-old and a teenager going into secondary school. But the thing is that now, when I sort of like go into schools to do my supply work, I take my books with me and always share 1 or 2 poems with the children. And this week, actually, I shared some of the poems, and one little girl got so inspired that there and then she wrote a poem herself.
Oh, amazing. I was going to ask you about that, actually, because I know that you're also a teacher like me. You supply teach. So those of you who don't know what a supply teacher is, you could find yourself in, a different school from one day to the next, or you might have a short-term position in a particular school. You're never in one place, if you like your freedom, anyway. So in terms of your job as a supply teacher, I mean, have you managed to get around to many schools, and how do you kind of weave in the poetry and I'm an author into, the lessons that you're taking?
Well, there's always 10, 15 minutes at the end of the day. And sometimes, during English lesson, if it's writing a poem or reading a poem, I mean, this week, what happened was, we were reading a poem about the creation of the universe. And I said, well, have you, the question that the teacher wanted to ask the children was, have you read any other poems? And they went like, no. So I said, well, would you like to hear some? Because I've actually got a book here, which I've written. And they were like, you're an author? They got a bit shocked. And so I said, well, yes, would you like to hear some? And they were like, yes. So, and I read a few of Aria's poems. And when children hear that an 8-year-old has written this poem, a 7-year-old has written these poems, they feel like, well, if she can do it, we can do it.
Exactly.
And so after we had, covered everything that we needed to cover in the lesson, we had about 10, 15 minutes left. And then one little girl, she said, Miss, I've actually got a poem that I've been writing. So I said, really? She said, yeah, well, bring it here. Let's have a look. And then she read the first 2 verses. And she said, I haven't quite finished yet. I said, would you like to finish? And she said, yes. So she finished her poem and then, read it up to the classroom. And then there was a LSA working in the classroom. And she said, well, my daughter loves poems.
Oh, so for those who are watching, LSA is like a learning support assistant or a teaching assistant. Yeah.
Yes, and that's right. And she said, I'm going to go home and order your book. So that for me is my life purpose, actually, is to inspire others to reach out and, break down barriers and realize their own potential, actually.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. You said that you're used to kind of working, but you're still breaking down barriers and creating breakthroughs and inspiring young children to write and publish their own books. Who knows? You might end up, collecting the poems from the children that you work with and producing a book from there. Just putting the idea out.
Funnily enough, one of the children, he did say, Miss, if we write poems, will you publish them for us?
There you go.
And as a supply teacher, the thing is that I'm never in the same school for too long. So it was, it would be a little bit difficult. But that has been my aim through an award which I've set up.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I set up an award which was actually there to inspire children to write, and then I would publish their book. The award is called Amaritis Award, after my father, who was illiterate, couldn't write his name even. And I just felt to honor his memory, I wanted to set up this award. So, and I thought, because I hadn't been able to go into schools to inspire the children, I thought that Aria and the NuSound Radio listeners were worthy recipients of this award for this year. So I've actually sort of like give her Aria the award, and the NuSound Radio listeners will be getting their award very soon, which I was really pleased to be able to hand over to them.
Well, so that's amazing. So lockdown, I think, presented many different things for different people. Some people, they really struggled. I think we all had our challenges. We definitely did our challenges. And I think the beauty of, I look for the beauty in everything. So, I mean, the beauty of that time is it did allow us time to tap into deeper creative sides of ourselves, and perhaps embark on projects that we might not have done before. Give us a bit of reflection time as well. So sorry, what I've got, Portia says, oh, that's a wonderful idea, Danni, thank you. The children's books. So what's next for you? Do you have any other books or projects in the pipeline? What are your plans? What are you thinking?
Well, believe it or not, during lockdown, I was sort of like, while I was home tutoring my granddaughter, while she was doing her work, I was writing my next book, which is a cookery book, actually. Because we always talk about, sort of like writing down the recipes. I've got lots of sisters, and they always sort of like, we're always exchanging recipes. And I think what's now happening is that actually we're losing our traditional recipes that I've grown up with. And because there's so many cookery books out there now from all over the world, but we're actually losing what, we grew up with. So my next book, which has been written, but what I need to do is actually go through the recipes and refine them and take pictures of them and get them sort of like publishing worthy. Yes, it's going to be called Mum's Favorite Recipes.
Ooh, amazing. So we've got a new thing now that if we take on cookery books, we need to sample at least 2 of the dishes in the cookery book before we review it.
Do you know what? I'm looking for somebody to do that, Danni. But come to me every weekend. I will cook you a different dish.
I will, of course. I live for food. I love my food. Absolutely. Right, you can send me an address later. I'll pop over. So that sounds amazing. You've been writing now, really flowing since 2018. What was it? I mean, before that, obviously, you'd had lots of poems. So what was that kind of moment in your mind that made you say, right, I'm going to be an author, or I've got lots of content here, I need to publish this and then create a book? What was that?
Yeah, like I said, a book wasn't in my mind at all. The only thing is, I mean, as a child, I always used to love poetry. I used to collect poems by a lady called Patience Strong. I used to cut them out and keep them in my book. I was just like a very passionate person, and I used to write poems for family, like, I wrote a poem for my husband before before we got married, and, write poems for my children, but never really believed in myself as a poet. But what really kind of, got me writing poetry in a true sense was when I lost my mother about 22 years ago. I was feeling very, very low, looking for a purpose in life, and thinking, assessing my relationships with everybody, myself, my husband, my family, my siblings, but all my feelings came out through my poetry. And so every time I used to write a poem, I used to basically share it with my sisters and a friend. And then I just made a home booklet, you know what I mean? Just to pass to my sisters, like, oh, I've made a poetry book, have a look. But, if nobody's got the time to actually read your poems, and I thought, nobody's really interested. But I kept on writing. And like some poems were on paper, some poems were on the computer. Like I said, a thought came into my head that I've worked so hard to write these poems, I don't want to lose them. And like when my friend, said, Gurmeet, you keep on writing these poems, when are you going to publish them? That's the time when actually the seed was sown in my head that maybe I could publish a book. But then, when I sent you the manuscript, it was in a form of a PowerPoint presentation, and you said, no, Gurmeet, I want it in Word. I mean, like, I had no idea what the process of publishing a book
I remember that.
And so once I had sent you the poems, I thought, that's it, Danni's going to publish my book now. And then she's like, no, Gurmeet, it's your book, how do you want it laid out? I don't know. What do you want the cover? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? The whole process was very daunting for me.
Yeah.
But having done it once, the second time, I kind of basically had the book ready for you, didn't I?
Yeah, it was birthed a lot easier. That's the thing, I think, a lot, and this is why I love doing this show, because it helps people to understand between the covers what it actually takes to actually publish a book, because it's very much a journey. I get authors who send us, Word documents all in the wrong form, whatever. And they think, yeah, I've done the hard work, publish it, do what you're doing. Well, you got to take control of the journey. What you want on the front cover? What's your color theme? Well, we can do it for you, but it's your book, and it's your journey. And I think you've done so well, and you've got a real, you can see with your own branding, these are the colors that you've chosen. We just execute what it is that you want us to do. Beautiful, some lovely, beautiful illustrations inside, really beautiful poems. This is the quotation books. And, every author has a say in how they want things to be laid out and how they want things to look. And I think that's really important. What has been your favorite part of your book journeys then? You've had 3 book journeys now, haven't you?
Yeah, I think, with the last one, it's certainly was a little bit easy. I mean, one of the children actually asked me the question, like, Miss, how do you know what to put on your cover? And I said, well, actually, you have to have an idea in your head. You have to have a vision of what it might look like. It may not end up looking like that, but you've got to have an idea. Because with my inspirational quotes book, I told you that I had this idea of me being on the cover, didn't I? And I kind of just had to have that picture of me on that book, you know. So whenever I thought about that, I saw that picture of me on that book, and you know, I don't know, I love it.
You love it. I think you love the creative part of it now, don't you? The kind of putting it together and the cover and seeing it come to life, right?
Yeah, and I think my with the first book, you know, my children helped me a little bit, because when they found out that, you know, I was publishing a book, and my son said, like, because I've always been sort of like stuck in the kitchen, you know, looking after everybody else, and didn't really like limelight, you know. I'd much rather be washing at the sink than be actually talking to people, you know. And my son, he said, like, Mom, you're going to be publishing a book, so now come on, you know, get used to being in the limelight. And then as a teenager, I used to love dancing, and you know, when I was at college, my main subject was art of dance, and so I thought, you know what, I've got some pictures of me dancing, and because the book is going to be called A Dance Through Life, yeah, why don't I put a picture of myself on the front? So, and that's my daughter. Well, it's supposed to be my daughter, because yeah. So I think that's more very personal to me, you know. That's because that was the first book, it's very personal to me. But this one, I think somebody said to me, this is more like a professional book.
I think that the beautiful covers.
You know, the cover, I gave Aria 2 pictures to choose from. I said, which one would you like? So she actually chose this cover for this.
She chose the cover, the
yeah,
picture.
Yeah. So the good thing
that was my favorite one as well, because you showed us too. I like that one. Good choice, Aria. Join our team.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that now, you know, I mean, like, I can advise her. I mean, she is now writing beautifully, you know, really, really beautiful writing. And what she said to me was like, the next book, I want just my name on it. You know?
But I mean, what's great is you're showing her it's tangible. You know, you've written a book. You're her grandmother. You know, she's looking up to you. You're going to the schools now, showing Our Dance Through Life Volume 2 with your 7. Well, she's 8 now. Your granddaughter who's written a poem. So these young people now are thinking, oh, if Aria's done that, I could do that as well.
Exactly.
So you know, it's amazing, and I think it's really inspirational. And you've done so much over the last. It's been 3 years, hasn't it? 2018 or 4 years. I can't quite work it out. It's done so quickly. Hey, Faye. But we just finished. We're going to finish now. So you can go back and watch the replay. Tell us how people can connect with you and where can people find your books?
Well, all my books are on Amazon, and basically, if people just type in the title of the book and my name, you know, there are a lot of other book sites as well that you can order them on, but they're very easily available on Amazon. And yes.
And they can find you on what social media platforms can people find you?
Well, I am on Instagram now as well.
Yay, you got you hooked up.
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn as well. So I'm getting media savvy now as well.
There you go. Under Gurmeet Dhanjal on all 3 platforms, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, and if you're watching, I've tagged her in anyway on all the social media, so there you just click on the link. Oh, we've got one comment here before we go. It's a chunky one. Oh, Hanifa, hello, fellow poet. She says, congratulations, Gurmeet, on writing and publishing your poetry book. As a poet and writer myself, I appreciate both the fear and the joy of the writing journey. Well done. I love the idea of dancing through life and look forward to buying a copy. Best wishes for your continued success. What a beautiful message.
Oh, thank you so much, Hanifa. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Maybe the 2 of you could do some sort of collaboration, because Hanifa is an awesome poet as well and author. So thank you so much.
I would love to do that. Love to do that.
Okay, I'll connect you on LinkedIn. You're watching on LinkedIn, aren't you? Awesome. Gurmeet Dhjanjal, thank you so much. I'm going to leave you with just one more question. Any words of wisdom that you can give to somebody who has got a really good idea? Perhaps they want to write a book, set up a business, start something new, but they feel confined, trapped on lockdown. They're not quite dancing through life yet. What would you say to them?
Carry on. Don't give up. Where there's a will, there's a way. I know that when I was looking for a publisher, I literally was walking up and down in this room thinking, how can I connect with somebody who will publish my book? And I had no idea how that was going to happen. But then the universe is listening all the time, and universe will find a way to sort of connect you with the right sort of people in the right way at the right time. So really, just don't give up on your dreams. That's what I would say. Carry on dreaming and making your dreams come true.
I love that, as you are. Thank you so much for joining us, Gurmeet. You've been an amazing guest. Really enjoyed speaking with you today, and look forward to working on your 4th book. Coming round for some food as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danni, for having me. It was a lovely experience, actually. A bit more relaxed this time than last time.
Oh, good. All right, excellent. So thank you everybody for joining. Portia says thank you and congratulations. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll be back next Wednesday, 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST, where I'll be speaking with another author. You'll have to tune in to find out who that is. Don't know why I just winked there. See you later. I have been Daniela Blechner, speaking to the awesome and amazing
Gurmeet Dhjanjal.
There you go. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Love you all. Bye-bye.